Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Angela, and so thrilled to be back here with another guest. It is a sunny day here in Maple Creek, and I am so thrilled to be able to have a great conversation with someone who has really transformed himself through some of the most painful things. So, before I start, I just want to let you know. This story isn't built on perfection. It is built on resilience. It's reinvention and it's hard learned lessons that have come from some of life's toughest battles. Hakeem Bourne McFarlane grew up navigating addiction, instability, and loss from an early age. As a mixed race only child searching for belonging, sports became his refuge and his identity. But after the devastating loss of his younger brother to cancer, grief transformed into anger, and that fracture followed him through his life. Hakeem's journey took him through every level of collegiate football, from Division One to Division Three, before injuries, five knee surgeries, addiction, and ultimately incarceration forced him to confront the pain he could no longer run from. And what followed wasn't a miraculous turnaround. It was something far more powerful than that. It was honesty, it was accountability, and it was the decision to rebuild his life from the ground up. And so, through recovery and personal discipline and relentlessness, Hakeem developed what he now calls the choose yourself process. And it's a framework centered on building a strong foundation before chasing motivation, creating structure before seeking freedom, and developing integrity before defining identity. And he is a speaker, an entrepreneur, a coach who helps people break destructive patterns, rebuild their lives, and reclaim ownership of their future. So, if you've ever wondered how to turn pain into purpose and adversity into growth and setbacks into a new beginning, you're going to get that from this conversation. Please welcome Hakeem Bourne McFarlane. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Angela. That was an amazing intro. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, you've got an amazing story to talk about. And, your story is a real inspiration, I think, for a lot of people. We talk about on this podcast how things, some of the most tragic things can happen to us. And it, if we can be resilient and open to growth, there's some amazing things that can happen out of some of the worst circumstances. So, um, I'm anxious to talk to you more about that. Looking back now, I'm just wondering what part of your childhood do you think shaped who you are today more than anything else?
Well, it's Mama D. She shaped
Hmm.
who I was. She was the
Yeah.
person that was there for me through all of this. I mean, from the beginning to the end till now, gratefully. And our relationship developed my understanding of what relationships are. And our relationship wasn't perfect, but I think all of us experience that whatever the opposite sex parent is, if they're around, becomes what you label love as. And we seek that in other people, in partnerships, in relationships. But my self belief and my confidence and my hard headedness that I now have dedicated to the mission came from her support, love, and guidance, regardless of what I was doing. If I was acting up, talking back, she always came back and supported me. And so now that's what I try to give back to people who may fall off or may be experiencing depression, addiction, isolation, neglect, abandonment, self-sabotage. Those are things that, I'll never give up on the purpose. And so to continue to create and be available is what keeps me motivated.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing that you can look back on that and see all the benefit that was there and then start to use that going forward. I think that's fantastic. So, a lot of your grief, a big part of it, I think, And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this was a major turning point in your life when your brother got cancer and passed away. And, I can see how the world around you would have changed dramatically. Um, when did you realize, because sometimes we just don't deal with it or we don't know how to deal with it. When did you realize that you were still carrying that grief from that loss?
Probably 8 years later. That
Mm,
happened in 2026. And then by 2015, I found myself in a dark place with no health, time, relationships, money, no mask, no belief in myself, in God, just me and space and time. And in those moments is really when God becomes the most prevalent. And I think we
yeah.
have to detach from what we expect and what we were taught, what we were previously pushed and
Mhm.
programmed to believe in order to find who we are through the struggle, and otherwise we think that the answer is in blaming, complaining, and playing a victim and somebody's going to come save us. And, in that year 2016 in solitude is when I finally said, okay, these are my choices. And those people who I feel are responsible for it are just those people. They're not people, they're not me. They are contributors to who I am, but who is that? And through the loss and all the transitions and all the grief, there's a lot of transformation, positivity, resiliency, like you talk about, that came from all this. And those are the things that I now focus on.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can hear, you talking about that space that we go into, and I think everybody has this story, when you've lost someone, it makes you question your belief system, makes you question life in general, and it takes you to a really dark place. How did you
Mhm.
get yourself out of that?
Systems, man. I had to make commitments to myself and follow through. And then my self-worth and self-belief changed. Then my awareness changed. Then the way people treated me changed because I treated myself differently. Then my
Mm,
consumption changed. And then the results became motivation. But at first, it's willpower and faith, y'all. You got to imagine something that ain't never been done. And although a lot of us, most of us have gone through similar, well, I mean, we're going to lose our parents. Hopefully, we don't lose our kids. You might lose your dog. You might lose a limb. You might lose your mind. We all lose something. Like grief comes in multiple forms. And so the transition, the choose yourself process that I didn't know that I was creating at the time, but through, 2 years of indulging in reflection and accountability, acceptance and research, community conversations, like I started to change into the version that I believe was intended to come from all of this. And then upon reflection, well, upon impact, I had a desire to then provide and be that space and support for others. So I had to go back into finding out what I did to be able to persevere. And those systems are now the choose yourself process, the foundational framework, and the story brand concept.
yeah, and I think it's so amazing that you went back and figured out what you did. I think a lot of us, we get through to the other side and we don't remember what we did.
Hmm.
But you going back and doing the work to figure that out so you could help others, that's really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
It's really, you know, what you do alone. Because we can wake up on time for our kids. We can wake up on time to go to work for somebody else. We can wake up on time to catch a flight to go on vacation. But when it comes time to waking up and really embracing solitude between your reset, your sleep, and your obligations, that's what really shifts the self-belief. And that's what I started taking serious with my routines around my sleep.
Wow. Yeah. So, um, I want to talk about your football as well, because I think some people will really relate to this. You had these injuries and setbacks, um, and we kind of build this identity around ourselves. And I think this happens with a lot of people who are in sports. Um, Without the athlete label, then we wonder, who we are. And what did that teach you?
Yeah, and I speak to athletes and kids about this all the time, the identity behind the jersey and how sports is a tool to develop characteristics that you need for life. And this is the same thing for any passion, whether you're a musician, you're an artist, you're a speaker, you're in anything that you believe is your destiny is always a tool, right? And who we become from it is the most important. But I was always good at sports. I played sports year round, growing up mixed. Like I was too dark for my white friends, too light for my dark friends. I always got the jokes on both sides.
Yeah.
And on the field, nobody said anything because I was the best on every team. I was always
Mhm.
good. I was just had the gift of being athletic, and I ended up using that as my motivator to then provide for my mom and my little brother. And my future was okay. I'm going to the pros. I'm gonna get rich. I'm gonna give back to my people. That was what the goal was. When my little brother died, it was I still had that as a relief, as a place of community, as a place of purpose, as a place of struggle, because you got to compete. You got to lose, you got to win, you got to practice, you got to study, you got to manage your time. So all these things still kept me occupied. But it went from a place to escape, to help my family escape, to a place for me to escape my grief. And so it went from something that can give back to something that kept me from facing what happened. And when my little brother died, I played in a basketball game that same day, and that became the mask. So now, as long as I had that dream to play, I didn't have to deal with the resentment and anger of what happened to my little brother, whether it was the doctors or my dad wasn't around or my mom wasn't around for me as much anymore because he was sick, or my relationship with my mom and my little brother had been impacted by his sickness. Whatever the anger came from, I think came from all that, partially. And I knew if I kept that dream, one, people would think I was okay because I was still scoring touchdowns and doing well. And so I was masking it with that. But two, I could still, in his name, persevere and be successful through that. And I never thought about what I wanted to do outside of sports. But as time went on, the anger on the inside started to match the anger on the outside because life is just a reflection of our projections. It's a self belief, it's confirmation bias, self fulfilling prophecy. Like whatever is going on inside, we'll find a way to find it, no matter
Mhm.
where it is. Somebody could give you a compliment, but if you don't like that part about yourself, you're going to think that they're being sarcastic just because you don't like it, right? Because the ego will do that. And that's what alignment is. So it starts by choosing yourself. And I became angry to where I would sabotage any situation because I wasn't equipped or emotionally aware or healed enough to be able to stay grounded in that environment. So whether it was D1 full ride to D2 full ride, then I had tore my ACL, then I dropped out for a year, had 5 knee surgeries, and this whole time I'd been fighting my teammates. I fought somebody on campus and
Mm.
went to jail and got a felony. Then I had to drop out, got kicked out of that school, ended up going back to school. I never lost the dream, which means I never lost the mask, which means I never healed. And
Mhm.
I've ended up going back to D3, played 4 years, got my bachelor's degree, got All American, was leader of the conference, the team, the division, and all that because I was a D1 and D3 talent, which it was still fun, but I wasn't challenged enough. So then I didn't have to prepare as much, which made me unprepared for when it was time to go pro, and ended up breaking my ankle as well in the process. And so that was the last straw that then yanked the dream away. And so once the mask was gone, I'm like, oh man, I'm 26. I broke my ankle. I'm not going to be able to recover from this. I got a plate. I got a screw. Now I got to sit with the anger. I got to sit with my choices. I got to take accountability. But I decided to take another route. I started to numb with substances. So for 2 years, I just wasn't sober. Whether I was smoking, drinking, popping pills, relationships, gambling, whatever it was, I was occupied with instant gratification, instant dopamine, which kept me at a quick high, but it wasn't sustainable. Eventually, you're gonna crash and burn, and that's what happened. Ended up crashing and burning after the mask was gone and the numbing was gone because I was through legal issues. I was forced into isolation in jail for 8 months twice. The second time, I had to do treatment and I had to do therapy along with jail for 8 months. And that experience really allowed me to open up. It allowed me to reflect. I started reading personal development books, the Bible. I started writing my book in jail with that second 8 month stint. And so as I researched, I understood it's not woe was me, it's woe was everybody. And what
Mm,
happened to you ain't your fault. It's your responsibility to figure out who you're supposed to be from it. And even if it
right.
is your fault, still your responsibility to figure out who you're supposed to be from that. And once I was done masking with sports, once I was done masking with substances, that's when I found out who I was supposed to be. I never knew before that. Never even had desire. I'm going to the NFL. I could not believe it because then the mask would be gone. I had to believe that. That's what kept me moving forward. That's what kept me hopeful. That's what kept me happy. That's what kept me vibrant and made me look like I was healed and I wasn't hurting. I had to have that mask. And
Hmm.
if I didn't, I was numbing. And then once that was gone, accountability. And so the systems I developed just through researching the mind, just for researching, the body, researching psychology and, how humanity has evolved, spirituality, all these things really got me focused first on what I can control, which is the time in solitude, what I do when I'm alone. That's what I can control. And so that's where most of my focus went, which then created boundaries for my nighttime routine, which created boundaries for my morning routine. It created boundaries of what I'm watching on my screens, boundaries of the music I'm listening to, boundaries of what I'm eating, because I had a place where I could create an intention and I had self commitments that if I follow through, then I start to control that voice in the mind that tells you to choose emotion throughout the day because it tells me stay up late. I choose intention. My emotions say scroll in bed. I choose intention. My emotions say hit the snooze. I choose intention and get up. My emotions say, oh, the stretching hurts. I hold the stretch. And so we're battling when we put these self commitments in. And the more times we choose what we said, the stronger our belief system. So that when we get into the world, we believe that if we start to heal and become vulnerable and accountable, we can actually become better. A lot of people don't want to be open and be vulnerable because they don't think they can handle subconsciously. They don't think they can handle the results of what that is. And so now the foundation framework is the first program that I started helping people choose themselves.
Wow. And so I'm just curious, when you were doing that reflection, what kind of books did you read, or where did you get the information from that helped to inspire you?
Yeah, the very first book in jail was The Secret.
Hmm.
It's a very common book. It's also on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. But I would say my top books are, well, besides my book, Choose Yourself to Be Chosen, which is on Amazon.
Mhm.
Outwitting the Devil is a big one. Laws of Human
Okay.
Nature. Atomic Habits was one of the first ones I read.
Mm.
The Way of a Superior Man was big for me.
Wow.
Principles, Ray Dalio. Like these are things I revisit now more frequently. Back then, think it was Seven Habits of an Effective Human Being was one of the first
Okay.
books. The most popular person development books is what I started listening to in the gym instead of music. I would
Mm.
just go on Audible and I would look person development in the top ones, Compound Effect, Atomic Habits, Seven Habits of Effective Human Beings. Um, those. So anybody start with those. If they're popular, there's a reason they're popular. So
Yeah.
really just researching why what's going on, what's
Yeah.
going on inside, so you can understand it better and become aware. Because we're not our thoughts. If you are quiet and you scream the word hello in your head, you scream it and you hear it at the same time, but you don't
Mm.
say nothing, and you're not
Right.
hearing nothing. So like, who is that who's listening and talking? That's the one we're trying to find, and it's buried beneath ego and fear and subconscious programming and our from what our parents taught us and what society says to do and pop culture and politics is buried beneath that. And so it gets silenced a lot, especially as a kid. Like when they just, you try to, I was talking a lot. Now I'm a speaker, but I always got in trouble for talking in school. Now I get
Right.
paid to do it. You got kids drawing on the desk, drawing on the wall. Well, they probably are supposed to be Picasso, but you
Yeah.
getting now they're in trouble for drawing, and all they want to do is draw. And I think that's where
Right.
the education system is, trying to teach monkeys how to fly and birds how to swim.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, no, I totally get that. And being a former educator, there's a lot of things you see on that side that, you question the traditional education and how we could change it so much to help children with the things that they are here to do,
Hmm.
naturally. And so I love that. Um, you say I didn't get saved, I got honest. And that's a really powerful statement. Um, what was the moment of honesty that changed everything for you?
Yeah, probably day 3 of my 8 days in isolation on my second 8-month stint in jail when I was finally sober and going through the withdrawals, then the anger, then the blame, then complain, and then having my girl leave me in there and having my dad tell my other family members don't bail him out, leave him in there. And so I finally had fed up everybody that loved me. They're like, "What the boy? He's
Mm,
supposed to be in the NFL. What happened to that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. I finally accepted, that my choices got me here. And, being honest with yourself is the greatest form of compassion because
mm,
otherwise you're going to be disappointed in everything. You just be honest, work on your effort, your mindset, your habituality, which is what you do most consistently. And eventually you'll start to identify the blessings. And just like that alignment component of your self belief system and life being a reflection of your projections, you have to have it in yourself first. Your savior can't even save you until you align your behavior with the things you pray for. A lot of people saying please when they pray, waiting for somebody to do something. Say thank you and then make it happen. And guess what? You start to see life differently.
yeah. Yeah, that's so true because I think I spent, a lot of time early on just asking for things to change, and not taking any steps in that direction, just hoping that a prayer would change everything.
Hmm.
Um, and so, yeah, I appreciate that perspective. So you created this choose yourself process. And for somebody who's listening today, um, and they're feeling kind of stuck in a cycle of like self-sabotage, or maybe they're in addiction, or maybe repeating the same mistakes over and over. What's the first step they can take to start rebuilding?
Morning routine, first
Mm,
thing. And it doesn't have to be long, it doesn't have to be much, but it got to be something and it can't be skipped. And it's between your alarm and your first obligation. And we have having hundreds of thousands of people online that I connect with, having members in the CYC who have evolved and are creating their own branches, who are mothers, coaches, leaders, who are dealing with weight loss and addiction. And all these people have chosen themselves. The Choose Yourself community is the most powerful community that I've ever been a part of. And it's helped me really see myself differently, but it helps me see people differently. It helps me see more hope in people because there's people who I think been through worse things than me, and they think I've been through worse than them. But if we put all our BS in the pile, we'll probably take our own back because we've already
yeah,
experienced it. I
right.
wouldn't want to experience something I haven't if it's negative. Like I just keep mine. I just keep mine.
Yeah.
So find community for accountability, find coaches, mentorships, find therapists, find online blogs, but start to filter what goes into your sensory input. Because if you keep hearing negativity, you keep surrounding yourself with people, you got social media, you got the news, you got all these negative stimulants, that's what then makes it hard to crack the cycle. So start by stripping down what you're consuming, identify it at least, and I understand like some people are truly addicted to that. They're addicted to their environment. They're addicted to toxicity. They're addicted to sugar, liquor, weed, nicotine, caffeine, gluten, dairy, processed foods, scrolling on the screen. People are addicted to that. And it's not about never indulging in it again. It's about breaking free. Then your relationship with that will change. And so the first thing that we do with anybody that I'm growing with is we talk about the foundation. We use the 7 pillars of the foundation framework, and it starts with your nighttime routine. Actually, because a lot of people can't sleep because you got your screen in your bed.
Mm,
You got vices, or you're eating so late. Like it's gonna disrupt your sleep. So you got your digital sunset, then you have nighttime routine, then sleep, then your wake up time, then morning routine, and then your first obligation, whether that be emails, whether that be leave for work, whether that be wake up your kids. That has to be sacred. It has to be sacred. You can't allow people, screens, or toxins into that foundation. And that begins to develop your identity. And the beautiful part about that is when we know we have time blocked off, like I know about 3 nights a week, my foundation is from 8 to 8. And then the other four, it's usually from like 12 midnight until 10 a.m. But I can be flexible with those in between. I can have an 8 hour foundation or I can have a 12-hour foundation. The beautiful part is when we're going through the day and we know we have time to ourselves, it gives us more capacity for stress because we already invested into stress management and we have a stress relief system already. So we're not fearful of things piling up like, oh, then I got to go to sleep, then I got to wake up, then I got to go do this, and you ain't got no
Mm,
time for yourself. So we have
right.
space for stress management. What it also does is it gives you a place to implement discomfort, whether it be heavy weights, cold shower, meditating, stretch, sprinting, fasting, discomfort, and you actually increase your resiliency and your ability to adapt when you embrace discomfort intentionally. Because then when you get into the world, the uncontrollables will also be uncomfortable, but you have that muscle, that mind muscle, to be able to choose your intention over emotion. And so, quick morning routine, you wake up, you skip the snooze button. That is your first commitment to yourself. You set the alarm the night before. Nobody else. You set it. Then you wake up and guess what you do? You let yourself down. You skip your
Hmm.
first commitment of the day. Your
Right.
mind is watching. You can't even wake up on time when you said. So skip the snooze button, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, scrape your tongue, drink some watermelon juice, drink some water with Celtic salt. If you can do cold shower at the end of your shower, do that for as long as you can. Deep breaths in the shower, real quick. Shower if you do in the morning. If you don't, cold water on your face. Something that's just uncomfortable. Obviously, it's not great to stand in there, but it's uncomfortable, and it's going to increase the volume on the softened mind, on the excuses. That voice is going to be loud. Oh my God, this is cold. This sucks. Just do it real quick and turn it off. Like
Right.
you'll start to notice that, and you get a jolt of neurotransmitters: dopamine, endorphin, serotonin, norepinephrine. All those things you get immediately in the morning. I'm addicted to them now. At first it
Yeah.
sucked, but you get addicted to it. Then you want to do something for the mind, something for the body, something for the spirit in the morning before you go back to your screens, before you go to the fridge, before you go to your coffee, before you go to turn on the news, before you go to your kids. And if you need to wake up earlier so you can do this before you wake up your kids, then do it. Something for the mind, you meditate 2 minutes, read 1 page. Just that. That's it.
Mm,
Stretch for 5 minutes, or do a quick workout, 5 push-ups, 5 body squats, 5 sit-ups. Boom. Quick, do that. And then something for the spirit. Write down 3 things you're grateful for, read a scripture, pray, go outside, put your feet in the grass, do those. That's a 15-minute commitment.
right.
You do that, I guarantee once you see the results and the difference in your day, you'll start to expand that time in the morning, which will motivate you to start to go to sleep earlier and more intentional at night because you want more time in the morning. Your time is not
Mm,
after your kids go to sleep. Go to sleep with your kids. Wake up before your kids. There's a lot of parents
mm.
in the CYC, and that's the key.
Wow. Lot of great nuggets right there in that short amount of time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I know people are going to see that, what you offer here is really valuable. Um, Tell me more about how people can work with you.
Yeah, Big Dream Hakeem on socials. You can submit your info on chooseyourself.info. You can join us every week on Tuesday with the CYC. That's the Choose Yourself community. We have guest speakers. We do exercises, accountability partners. I also host multiple workshops a year and an annual retreat every year as well. And this year it'll be in Sedona, October 1st. But
Nice.
you can simply just submit your info on chooseyourself.info or just shoot me a message on Instagram, Facebook, any of those, or shoot an email to chooseyourselfcommunity@gmail.
Wow, that's awesome. Um, and is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up? Anything that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, just understand we all go through what you're going through. Maybe not to your extent, maybe not the specifics, but the human experience is universal if you're a human. And God and the devil both reside inside as long as you're alive. And you get two choices when it comes to your relationship with both. You can be a deal maker or you can be a deal breaker. But understand this. If you make a deal with the devil won't show up as the devil because you won't make the deal. It might
Mhm.
show up as sugar, liquor, nicotine, porn, weed, pills. It might show up as the urge to cheat on yourself or your spouse or a daily cheat meal. It might show up as self-sabotage or self-destruction because whenever God gives you something good, you corrupt it and abruptly interrupt it, seeking a victim's mentality by disrupting your production, but those weren't the instructions you constructed. Okay? And you don't have to
Mhm.
lift weights. You don't have to sprint every day. You don't have to go to sleep on time, but you have more choices in life if you choose yourself today.
Wow. Yeah, and I love that message about choosing yourself. I
Hmm.
think that is really the key. We have not been choosing ourselves, and we were brought up to think that that was selfish. And
Right.
I love your message, and I love what you're doing. I encourage people to seek you out and to look at some of the things that you're doing. And certainly, if it resonates with you, why not join in on some of that? And I think it's all great advice. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you so much, Angela. Keep choosing yourself. I appreciate what you do for the people.
Yeah, thanks so much. And thanks everyone for listening. And bye for now.